Birmingham, Berlin, and the ghost of North Carolina. She stepped onto a grass court in Birmingham on the first day of June 2026 and immediately set the tone, taking the opening set 6-0 with a level of control that made it look like she had grown up on grass rather than learned it. 6 days later, when she lifted the trophy, something in the tennis world quietly shifted. For months, Alex Eala had been labeled in a very narrow way. An aggressive baseline player. Promising on faster surfaces. A prospect worth watching but not yet fully defined. Then she arrived in England and completely rewrote that narrative. 9 wins on grass in just 3 weeks. 2 victories over top 10 opponents. A WTA title. A rise to world number 29. All of which meant that when the Wimbledon draw was released and her name appeared inside the seeded bracket, history had already been made before a single ball was struck at the All England club. She became the first Filipino, man or woman, in history to earn a seeding at a Grand Slam. A milestone that had never been reached across any generation of Philippine tennis. And she did it at just 21 years old. Then the draw added another twist. A name that changes everything. She was placed against Renata Zarazúa. A name that, on paper, looks like a footnote. In reality, it's something far more complicated than the ranking gap suggests. And anyone calling this a straightforward win for Alex has not looked closely at what is actually in front of her. Zarazúa is 28 years old, from Mexico, and turned professional back in 2012, when Alex was just 7 years old. She has spent more than a decade on tour building a very specific skill set, making opponents uncomfortable in ways that do not show up on highlight reels. She is not a power hitter. She does not rely on overwhelming serve speed or blasting winners from the baseline. What she does is far more subtle, and in many ways more dangerous. She breaks rhythm. She disrupts timing. She changes the pace of a match so often that you stop trusting your own shots. And by the time you realize what is happening, you are already a breakdown in the second set, trying to understand how everything slipped away. The most important part of this matchup is that she has already done it to Alex before. Cary, North Carolina. August 2024. To really understand the stakes on Court 12 at Wimbledon, you have to go back to a hard-court event in North Carolina, where Alex was still outside the top 100, still developing, still trying to understand the full shape of her game at this level. Zarazúa, meanwhile, was climbing toward what would become a career-high ranking of 51. They met in the quarterfinals. Alex started strong, taking the first set 6-3 with clean ball striking, sharp movement, and the unmistakable sense that she was the better player, on paper, and for a while on court. Then Zarazúa adjusted. She began pushing the ball deeper and slower, mixing pace in a way that pulled Alex's timing apart. The flat, aggressive ground strokes that had been landing precisely in the corners started drifting wide. Unforced errors crept in. Even the serve, usually the most reliable part of Alex's game, started losing its control as the match slipped into a very different rhythm. Double faults at the worst possible moments. Zarazúa took the second set 6-4, then carried that momentum into the third, closing it out 6-3 and walking off the court with a match that, for long stretches, had looked firmly under Alex's control. That kind of loss, the kind where everything feels stable until it suddenly is not, where points slip away one by one rather than in a collapse, stays with a player differently than a straight defeat. It does not just hurt in the moment. It lingers. It becomes a reference point. A quiet memory of how this specific opponent once pulled a match out of your hands when you thought it was already yours. Now that memory returns. On a very different stage. A different player entirely. The grass of Wimbledon is not North Carolina, and the stakes are infinitely higher. But more importantly, Alex herself is not the same player she was nearly 2 years ago. In January 2025, she was hovering around 140th in the world. By March 2026, she had climbed as high as number 29. That kind of rise through the brutal middle tier of the WTA, where players are close enough to the top to see it, but far enough to struggle breaking through, does not happen by chance. It comes from sustained consistency. A Dubai quarterfinal. An Indian Wells round of 16. A Miami round of 16. All on hard courts, the surface everyone assumed would be her natural strength, the one that fit her early reputation. Then the grass season arrived, and everything people thought they understood about her game started shifting in a different direction. Birmingham, where the shift became impossible to ignore. She entered Birmingham as the top seed at a WTA 125 event and lost just one set the entire week. That lone set came in the final against Nikola Barčanova, who pushed her deep before Alex closed it out 7-5 in the decider. There is a moment from that day captured on camera, Alex standing at the net after match point, hand over her mouth, completely still for a few seconds, processing what she had just done. Her first professional title on grass, at a tournament where she was not expected to make a statement. She left with one anyway. Berlin, the run that confirmed it. She carried that momentum straight into Berlin the following week as a wild card, ranked 35th, the kind of entry most fans glance past when scanning the draw. And then she beat Elena Rybakina in the round of 16, 7-5, 6-4. Rybakina. World number 2. A player whose serve alone can overwhelm opponents on any given day, especially someone like Alex, who builds her game on timing, angles, and precision rather than raw power. But that afternoon, Rybakina made 41 unforced errors. While some of that came from her own inconsistency, a large part of it was forced by what Alex was doing from the baseline, striking the ball deep, flat, and heavy enough to take away any clean rhythm, constantly returning shots at a length and height that left Rybakina with very little to attack comfortably. Alex made one of the most dominant players in the world feel rushed, unsettled, and uncomfortable on a surface she is supposed to control. That is not luck. That is execution under pressure at the highest level. Then came Jasmine Paolini, world number 8, a player whose defensive skills and counterpunching usually drag matches into long physical exchanges that smother exactly the kind of aggressive, flat-striking tennis Alex plays. Alex went up 3-0 in the opening set and never looked back, closing it out 6-3, 6-4 in under 90 minutes. It was a statement run. 2 consecutive top 10 victories in a WTA 500 event where she arrived as a wild card and was not even widely expected to survive the opening round. The semifinal against Emma Navarro did not go her way, 6-2, 6-4, and that is fine. Navarro on grass is a pure ball-striking force, someone who can finish rallies before Alex even gets the chance to redirect them. The loss was clean, competitive, and carries no real shame. But what that Berlin run revealed about Alex's game on grass matters enormously for understanding exactly what Zarazúa is walking into. Why grass suits her specifically. When Alex steps onto court, she takes the ball early. That phrase gets thrown around in tennis commentary constantly, but with her, it is not just a stylistic detail. It is the foundation of everything she does on this surface. She positions herself inside the baseline and meets the ball on the rise, and on grass, where the bounce is lower, skiddier, and faster than anywhere else, that transforms her ground strokes into flat, skimming missiles that barely clear the net and stay brutally low on the opponent's side of the court. That is the key problem for anyone trying to defend against her. Grass does not provide the natural upward lift you get on clay or even hard courts. A flat strike does not sit up. It stays down, stays quick, and keeps penetrating forward. When Alex drives a backhand cross-court at shin height, the ball is not giving her opponent time to reset or breathe. It is already on them, forcing contact from uncomfortable positions, rushing their timing, stripping away the rhythm they need to construct any real response. The opponent has to dig under it, get the racket below the knee, and lift upward from a compromised position just to keep the rally alive. This is why her results look so different depending on surface. On clay, she has 6 wins and 6 losses. The red dirt slows everything down, raises the bounce, and gives opponents time to recover and re-enter the rally. Those flat, skidding trajectories that are so damaging on grass lose their bite entirely. They sit up instead of staying low and become readable, attackable, far less threatening. But on grass, Alex is playing a completely different game. And it is a game that fits her far better than most people initially realized. So where does Zarazúa fit into all of this? To understand that, you have to look past the ranking gap and focus on what she actually brings to a grass court. She does not overwhelm opponents with raw pace. She does not hit through players or generate heavy ground stroke power that forces errors. What she does, and this is why she has survived on tour for 14 years, is control tempo. She denies rhythm. She constantly changes the speed of the ball. A slow, deep push into the backhand corner. A sudden drop shot that dies before the service line. A neutral ball turned sharply off the court at an unexpected angle. Then a high lob into the space just vacated. Her entire game is built around one principle. Force the opponent to generate their own pace, then punish whatever comes back short or rushed. Against Alex, who thrives on incoming pace and uses it to accelerate her own aggression, that is a genuinely dangerous equation. And we have already seen a version of it play out in Carey. Look closely at what happened in those final 2 sets. Alex was in control when she could dictate tempo. The moment Zarazúa removed that rhythm, slowing the exchanges, changing height, breaking patterns, the match flipped. Alex was forced to create her own pace instead of redirecting it. That is when her game tightened. The serve became less free. Double faults crept in at the worst possible moments. The margins started to shrink. Meanwhile, Zarazúa, who had spent an entire set absorbing pressure, suddenly had a match that looked exactly the way she wanted it to look, and suddenly looked like the more composed player in the building. That is the memory that matters here. That is the specific thing Zarazúa knows she can do to this opponent. But the surface itself works against her. Here is the problem for Zarazúa. And it is a significant one. The surface under her feet on Monday does not naturally cooperate with the style she relies on. Her career record on grass sits at 12 wins and 14 losses, and in 2026 specifically she is 3-4 on the surface. Her most recent grass court appearance before Wimbledon ended in a qualifying loss in Bad Homburg to a player ranked outside the top 100. Before that, she fell in the opening round of another grass event, 6-1, 6-2. These are not the numbers of a player arriving at the All England club with confidence or momentum. The problem is structural. The defensive, disruptive style that makes Zarazúa dangerous, the patience, the variation, the ability to absorb pace and redirect it, loses effectiveness on grass because the ball simply does not behave in a way that allows her to settle into it. She is constantly dealing with a low, skidding trajectory that forces her to hit upward from difficult contact points, often stretched or rushed. Instead of striking through the ball cleanly from her preferred hitting zone, instead of setting up and constructing patterns, she is reacting early, adjusting late, making micro-corrections just to keep the rally neutral. That changes everything. The geometry of grass compresses her decision-making time, reduces the clarity of her shot selection, and limits the variety she can comfortably produce. Over time, that makes her more predictable than usual, even if her intentions remain the same. Compare that to what Alex has been doing on this surface: 9 wins and 3 losses in 2026. 24-11 across her grass court.